Conservator, can you hear me? Can you hear me, guys? Hello, can you hear me, guys? Hamsters have been revived. Let me know if you can hear me, because I can see you, but I can't hear you guys. And we have audio too. Yay, that's wonderful. Hear you. Fantastic. Sorry about that, guys. YouTube has done something. I don't know what, but I should be back on the road once again. So let's continue. Let me read out some. I had some super chats from the last one. Freckle Punny said, so no matter how bad the Tories are and how much they screw you over, Labour will always be worse. These people do not deserve sympathy at this stage. Yes, that's true. Thanks so much, Freckle Punny, for that. This idea that, yeah, it's, well, it doesn't matter, you know, the Tories have screwed us over, but, well, it's best not to vote Labour because they're just as bad. And, you know, people forget what life was like before the Tories came to power. Welcome back, people. Apologies for YouTube. I'm not sure what was happening there. Magic, thanks for that super chat before we lost the connection. Magic said he has more than £14,300. He does not qualify for means tested benefits. So then that's the reason. If you have money in the bank, then you don't qualify.
During the building boom. So a lot of these people that are from work.
You can have him, mate. I really don't know. You know, I've been self-employed all my life. I've been off work 2.5 years. I don't get any money because I'm self-employed. And I've got over 16,000 in the bank. So they don't pay me nothing. I'm not entitled to it. But now, I do get £11 a day. The same as what anyone that comes up on the beach get. But I don't get my rent paid. I don't get my food. And this is what puts me off of voting Conservative. Someone's got to do something.
And, you know, there's a lot of homeless here. People are struggling. Food banks on the island. You know, young families that work hard. You know, they don't know how they're going to heat their homes or whether they're going to eat. And then we're putting people up in hotels.
So just before I lost the stream, I was saying how this lady was supporting Boris Johnson before, but Boris Johnson is responsible for this as well. How can you say, you know, I wish Boris Johnson was still in charge and complain that there are people going to food banks, or that young people are struggling at the moment to feed themselves or to buy a house or whatever? How can you say that, you know, this is a problem and then say, yeah, but I would have supported Boris Johnson if he was still in charge? How do you square that circle?
It's not right. It's not right.
450 people got off boats at Dover on Sunday just for the benefits. That's why they're coming here.
Just for the benefits. It's this idea that, you know, people are not coming here because they're, you know, fleeing persecution, or in some cases coming to work. No, just the benefits. Like, the benefits are not enough to live on. But people are coming over anyway, just for the benefits. And so the benefits are barely enough to live on. In some cases, maybe not enough to live on. And he's saying that these, yeah, but this is the pull factor, the benefits.
France is empty. Go to Bordeaux, Dijon, all around there. Miles and miles of places they could live.
France is hosting more refugees and asylum seekers than the United Kingdom.
Don't get benefits, so they come here.
You know, I mean, I worked all my life. My father said to me when I was 15, get out, because I'm not keeping you.
I brought you into this world. Now get the hell out of my ass. I'm responsible for your existence. Now get the hell out of my ass.
Today you got these young girls, they go out, have 3 or 4 kids and never work in their life. But we have to keep them. You know, and I had a young fella say to me, why should I be paying for your pension? Well, I paid my national insurance tax all my life, mate. I paid for my own pension. You haven't.
No. That's not how it works. You pay for the pensions of the people when you were working. You didn't pay into a pension fund and then you claim the money back after. That's how many people seem to think it works. No, when you were working, you were paying the pensions of people who were not working. And that's how the system works. It doesn't work. Now, maybe I'm mistaking something. Maybe I'm missing something here. But generally how it works is the people of today pay the pensions of the people of today. The people working today pay the pensions of the people today. So the people working today are paying your pension. Okay, it's not you paid into it and you're claiming it back now. That's not, unless it's a private pension, but he's not talking about a private pension. He's talking about the state pension. State pension is based on the money that's collected from people working today. And this is a problem because the older generation are increasing in size and the number of people working, the younger generation, is getting smaller in size. And if you look at countries like Japan, where they have a massive older population and a shrinking younger population, who's going to pay into the pension funds? Who's going to pay the pensions? This is a big problem. I'm not going to try and discuss possible solutions now, but that's out of the scope of this video. Conservator, thanks so much for that super chat. Poland hosts 5 million plus refugees and the UK is full. Yes. It's always, because if you listen to GB News and if you listen to other gammon shows or TV channels or radio shows, it's like England is full, Britain is full, and these other countries are just dumping their refugees and asylum seekers onto Britain. The French don't want to hold them, so they just let them go, or encourage them to cross the channel. And they never mention the numbers in other countries. Why do they not do that? Why do they never mention the numbers? Fearless, thanks so much for that super chat. The majority of it's down to jealousy because of lack of understanding of how their own system works. It is. It's and of course and that jealousy is being fed by right-wing media, be it newspapers or these new TV channels like Gammon Brexit News and Talk TV. They know that there's a certain section of the population who are not interested in informing themselves, in doing the heavy lifting of researching, okay, who gets benefits, who doesn't get benefits, how are the benefits distributed, what are the hoops that you have to jump through in order to get access to benefits. Thanks, Alistair. Because it's easier just to listen to some gob on a stick. It's easier just to listen to some ranting lunatic on one of these channels who say they're all lazy and the young people don't want to do anything, and back in my day, all of these things, because it makes them feel comfortable about themselves. It's, as I said before, it's about teaching people who have very little to be angry with people who have nothing, but never angry with the people who have everything. Thanks so much, Alistair. Funds to keep the hamster running, Max. And we're almost at the end of this.
I'm for it.
Because the last few years we have had a lovely time, really, and then it's just all gone pear-shaped now.
What do you mean it was a lovely time? Has the last few years, has this guy lived through austerity? Of course he hasn't. He's had it comfortable. And now there's a bit of a downturn in his income. And he's saying, well, we had it wonderful before. Yeah, people have been struggling under austerity for almost 10 years now. So guys, we're about halfway through the stream, I think. I don't have the timers no longer working. So we'll jump to a comedy moment and then be back in just a jiffy for more serious stuff. Hopefully it works and doesn't crash again.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line. Hello, Colin.
I am disgusted, absolutely disgusted.
What's happened now, Colin?
My grandson's primary school are doing their nativity play, right? But the school's gone woke, of course.
Oh, no, not another school gone woke. What are they doing, Colin?
They're having a pregnant migrant woman crossing a border with her husband, who isn't even the dad, and we're supposed to be happy that they're given a warm place to stay.
Well, that is the nativity story, isn't it, Colin? That's quite accurate.
Oh, you'd love it if the Bible told us to be nice to refugees, wouldn't you? That would suit your Ramona agenda down to the ground. They're brainwashing our kids, and Rishi Greenfingers Sunak is doing nothing.
What role is your grandson playing, Colin? What part?
The donkey.
Ah,
the donkey.
that's lovely.
That's the biblical version of a small boat crossing the channel. I'm going to tell him on the day, son, you refuse to take him. Show a bit of backbone. Unlike this woke tofu-eating mafia we call the UK, tell Gary Bloody Lineker and James O'Brien we are not rolling over.
Where is a Herod when you need one, Colin?
Well, you say what you like about one of the most tyrannical rulers in the ancient world, but at least he'd bring in ID cards. Anyway, Anthony, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Just a bit more on what's happened today. Summary of the day. Former Health Secretary Sajid Javid tweeted that he will not be standing again in the next general election. Matt Hancock made a triumph return to Parliament after a surprisingly successful appearance on ITV's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And Boris Johnson gave a speech to a conference on blockchain, the technology behind cryptocurrency, as part of his lucrative post-number 10 lecture circuit. Despite controversy surrounding the industry after the multi-billion-dollar collapse of the FTX exchange. Once again, what is Boris Johnson? Isn't Boris Johnson still an MP? Shouldn't he be, I don't know, like representing his constituents instead of, giving speeches at conferences on blockchain? This is insane. Boris Johnson is an MP. He should be representing his constituents in Uxbridge. But no, he was giving a speech some weeks ago to the value of £250,000 to give a speech. Who the hell pays Boris Johnson to give a speech? Are these people nuts? Do they have more money than sense? Boris Johnson, why would anyone... I wouldn't have Boris Johnson over for dinner. It might be a bit funny if you ignore all the negatives, okay? But, would you be able to tolerate Boris Johnson in your home for more than 10 minutes? Even if you were a fan of his, you probably wouldn't be able to hold, to keep him in the house for more than 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm not sure what's wrong with these people. But he should be in his constituency, representing his constituents, like Matt Hancock. Now, Matt Hancock had the whip removed, but he's still an MP. I want to move on to the strikes. So this was a wonderful speech given, interview given by a member of Novara Media, Ash is her name, and she did an amazing response to comments about people going on strike, workers going on strike at the moment.
There'll be a lot of people waking up this morning who will be saying we have this horrific cost of living squeeze. Fuel costs have gone up dramatically. Even yesterday, they've gone up the most they have in 17 years. Energy prices are soaring. The last thing we need is the threat of rail action, which means on those 3 days when I have to go to work, I can't use my car because it's too expensive. I've got to go on the train, and now I can't do that either.
I'd actually flip it the other way around, all right? In a context where the cost of living crisis is being paid for by ordinary workers, the thing that you need are strong unions and the ability to collectively bargain for better pay and conditions. Now, why the RMT are striking, which is, I notice, not something people have talked about, is that workers who had been keeping the railways running during the pandemic are being threatened with job cuts and a pay freeze, which would mean that their pay isn't keeping up with inflation. And so that's why the union is doing their job and saying, we will use our strength, which is the fact that you can't run this without us to protect and defend our workers' conditions. That is the job of a trade union. And if it's so important to keep the railway running, because, I agree, these workers are totally essential, then the bosses should be coming up with a reasonable package that the workers can accept. Every single person in this country has benefited from rights which have been secured by trade unions and the right to strike, including minimum wage, maternity pay, sick pay. These are all things which, before they were made law, were won by trade unions, and they benefited everybody. Because you're essentially selling a myth to the people of this country. You're saying, well, if you ask nicely, if you play nicely, if you're a good little boy or girl, maybe the bosses will take pity on you. That's not how it works. Workers have one form of power, and that is collective bargaining. And every right we have as workers in this country has been secured by playing hardball.
Wonderful, wonderful. I couldn't have said it better myself. Wonderful. And that's what it's, as she said, you can't get your rights by asking nicely. You have to play hardball. We've seen it over the last 100 years, how trade unions had to go on strike and had to go on pretty terrible strikes as well. There were, people got injured, people got killed during some of these strikes. But they won these rights. As she said here, holiday pay, sick pay, maternity leave. Even the weekend itself is something that was won by trade unions. So what the narrative is always is, well, the unions are going on strike and the unions are disrupting ordinary working people. And you see it in the House of Commons as well, how Rishi Sunak and his Tories will say these militant unions trying to disrupt the lives of hard-working people, ignoring, of course, the reality and the fact that all the people who are on strike are hard-working. He's trying to drive a wedge between those who are striking and those who are not striking, those who are striking and those who can't strike. And what they're also trying to do is push through legislation, and I've mentioned it before, about making it practically impossible to strike, because if you do, you'll be replaced by agency staff. Anyway, moving on. Just wanted to share that with you because I think it was a wonderful speech from Ash. Brexit added nearly £6 billion to UK food bills in 2 years, research finds. Brexit added almost £6 billion to UK food bills in 2 years since to the end of 2021, affecting poorest households the most, research has found. The cost of food imports from the EU shot up because of extra red tape, adding £210 to the average household food bills over 2020-2021, London School of Economics researchers discovered. Now, the response from Brexiteers is, well, this is just £210 over 2 years. It's nothing. But Brexit was supposed to make things cheaper. That was one of the driving forces behind Brexit. Jacob Rees-Mogg said food and footwear would be cheaper because we would be able to bring down these tariffs. Of course, ignoring the reality of why tariffs exist in the first place. Tariffs exist to protect domestic industry. You don't generally impose tariffs on things that you don't produce yourself, because then you just make things expensive for no reason. The purpose behind a tariff is to protect domestic industry. So you drive up the price of imports and you protect the domestic industry when it tries to compete with these imported goods. But if you're not producing the goods yourself, then there's no value in having a tariff on it, unless it's the government just wanting to collect money for the exchequer. So it goes on to say, as low-income families spend a greater share of their income on food, the impact of Brexit on their purchases was disproportionately greater, they said. The research comes the day after data from the British Retail Consortium trade body showed UK food price increases hit a record of 12.4% in November as the price of basics such as eggs, dairy products and coffee rose. And of course this is 12.4% for the poorest in society is much different to 12.4% for the richest in society, because the richest in society don't spend anywhere near the proportion of their income on food. The poor in society do. Food and energy. Researchers at the Centre for Economic Performance, the CEP, at the London School of Economics studied micro data tracking trade flows and consumer prices for food products in the UK to identify the transfer of the cost of Brexit red tape to households. We find that leaving the European Union increased the price of food products by 3% a year, leading to a 6% increase over a 2-year period. They said in their report, named Non-Tariff Barriers and Consumer Prices, Evidence from Brexit. So, if we eliminate Brexit, prices would be about 3% cheaper. Price for food. Which is not a huge amount, but it's still a significant amount. If inflation is running at 12.4% for food, and you can take 3% off that helps people out. But remember, Brexiteers said food would be cheaper, not more expensive. And it's not decreasing over time. It's because these are built-in costs. These are permanent costs. So it's not like, well, if we get better with the paperwork, this price will come down. No, this is the cost of being outside the single market. And the UK imports, I think, about 40% of its food. Its calculations translated to a £5.84 billion cost to the food market alone, equating to £210 per household. So, once again, what the benefit of Brexit is, well, more expensive food. Put that in your pipe, Jacob Rees-Mogg. More on Brexit, it says here, landowners condemn Tory government for stifling rural businesses. Landowners have told the Environment Secretary they are running out of patience with the Conservative government after 12 years of the rural economy being stifled and delays to nature-friendly farming payment schemes. Remember that the Tories natural support base is farmers, the rural communities, and now they're turning on the Tories as well, which is something really to watch at the next election. We tend to focus on the cities because that's where the population centres are, but rural communities are turning on the Conservatives. Now, some of them will switch to the Liberal Democrats, but many are actually turning to Labour because they see in Starmer somebody who perhaps understands what they're going through a bit better than the Tories do. At a conference organised by the Country Land and Business Association, the CLA, the largest rural landowner group in the country, Therese Coffey announced that the review into new land payment schemes had concluded, but admitted that farmers and other land managers would remain in the dark with regards to detail on payments and standards until next year. Farmers have been in limbo for 6 years about how they would be subsidised by government after it was announced that England would diverge from the EU's common agricultural policy and have its own nature-friendly farming payment schemes. Once again, it's this, don't worry, we're going to diverge from the common agricultural policy and we'll compensate you for any money that you've lost from being outside the EU. And then nothing arrives. Once again, typical Tory lies. Promising to do something and then not doing it. They just continue. It's just continual lie after lie after lie, and nothing ever changes. And, one of the things about Brexit was they were saying, of course, don't worry, whatever money you used to get from the EU, we will match it. And we saw places like Cornwall, one of the most poor, was one of the biggest recipients of EU funding in the UK, and now they're getting a third of what they were getting when they were a member of the EU. The UK was a member of the EU. The only place that's benefiting in a sense from Brexit in the UK is Northern Ireland. It has access to the EU single market and the internal market, but everywhere else, with the exception of London, is suffering the consequences of Brexit. And finally, on Brexit, just one more story. It's never any good news, is it? Brexit has worsened shortage of NHS doctors. More than 4,000 European medics have chosen not to work in the NHS since Britain left the EU, data reveals. The disclosure comes as growing numbers of medics quit in disillusionment at the relentless busy working lives in the increasingly overstretched health service. Official figures show that the NHS in England alone has vacancies for 10,582 physicians. Britain has 4,285 fewer European doctors than it had than if the rising numbers were before the Brexit vote in 2016 had been maintained since then. So they have 4,000 fewer if nothing had changed, according to analysis by the Nuffield Trust health think tank, which has shared with The Guardian. And we can see here a graph. So actual number working in the UK, numbers if pre-Brexit trends had continued. So if Brexit had not happened, you can see the difference. 41,000 compared to 37,000. And of course, this has a real impact on ordinary people's lives. Fewer doctors, fewer GPs, fewer operations carried out, fewer procedures carried out, I should say, more delays, and a higher level of stress on the existing staff. We saw it with the nurses as well. There are fewer nurses, and those fewer nurses have a higher workload. And the nurses what's happening also is that they're going home to cold homes and feeding themselves and their families with food banks. And they're also relying on leftovers from patients as well. Gareth, great to see you on the stream. Thanks so much for that super chat. Sorry I'm late, Max. Just got back from the Farage nativity. Wouldn't recommend it. Unless, of course, you enjoy some Skegness gammon yelling at two Arabs and their donkey for 2 hours or so, for fuck's sake. Okay, I want to see that now. I'm curious. Thanks so much, Gareth. Great to have you on. But once again, Brexit is not just economic damage, it's actually damage to people's health. More doctors are killing themselves, apparently. That's... oh my goodness. Thanks, number 3. And people can only tolerate so much stress. And I was listening to James O'Brien talking to, I think it was a nurse or a doctor or somebody who's a relative has one. And it was they're desperate. They want to help patients, but they're receiving more and more abuse from patients because patients are angry, they're upset, they're desperate. You know, you go into hospital expecting to be treated, and you have to stay outside in the cold, or you have to stay, in a waiting room for hours. And unfortunately, some people don't survive that. There have been a number of stories where people have died either waiting for an ambulance or waiting for treatment in the hospital. And it's not the fault of the doctors or the staff. It's the fault of the system, and it's the fault of the government. The government decided we're going to put in measures to block the country from getting the workers it needs. It was ideological. There was no economic justification for this. There was no rational justification for ending freedom of movement. It was purely political, ideological. Who does it benefit? It doesn't benefit the NHS having access to fewer workers. And this is something I really wish people would bring up. Challenge ministers, challenge the right wing when they talk about these things. Where is the benefit in having fewer doctors and nurses? Oh, we're going to train up our own. How long does that take? How long does it take to train up a GP? How long does it take to train up a surgeon? How long does it take to train up a staff nurse or a carer? It's... And another problem, of course, is that the NHS, on the limited budget it has to find staff, so it has to bring people in from the private sector, and it has to pay them more. And there are stories of nurses being paid 5 times the regular rate because the hospital or the particular clinic needs the staff. They can't operate without them, so they're paying extra. And this is, of course, eating into the budget, and it's also creating a long-term problem. Stephen, thanks so much for that super chat. Hey, thanks for the coffee. Is it coffee or wine? It looks like coffee. It's in a mug, so you don't drink wine from a mug. Thanks for that. Good to have you on the stream, Stephen. And finally, once again, sticking with these things, I was talking about warm banks and food banks. This is a story from Sussex. It says here, I'll show you this clip from this video. Let's see if it loads.
I am here at Beaver.
I just read, Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. 4,000 attacks on NHS staff in Scotland. Midwives chased down corridors. I understand people are frustrated, but you can't take this out on the staff. They are there to help you. They're there to do their best. They're trying to do their best. I don't believe anyone's getting into nursing because they want to make lots of money, or because it's a cushy job, or you have nothing to do all day. People do it because they want to help others. They have a calling, but they have to be able to work. They can't be... It really, really pisses me off when I hear about staff being attacked or being abused. Completely unacceptable. And I support any sort of, real punishment to people who do this. Especially when it comes to like drunk people attacking nurses or doctors in A&E. And it happens a lot, unfortunately. And I really think people like that should be severely punished. Because you have somebody, taking crap on low pay, and they're still trying to provide you comfort and trying to look after you. Community service or some sort of punishment, or having to work. People who have abused members of staff should be forced to work in the A&E. Mopping the floor for a couple of nights, cleaning up the blood and crap that is normally vomit and stuff like that. That should be the punishment. Then to understand, we should actually treat these people with respect. Thanks, Alistair.
Centre for Crawley Borough Council's official opening of the town's warm banks. There are also banks opening in Lanley Green and Tilgate today. Why did Crawley Borough Council decide to open warm banks across the town?
Well, Ellis, there's an increasing pressure on people's finances with the cost of living crisis and energy bills increasing by quite alarming amounts. And we as a council to do whatever we can to help local people. So we have set up these winter warmer spaces, which will be places that people can come. They'll be able to spend some time, perhaps save some money because they won't.
Sorry, somebody asked. So I don't understand warm bank. WM is warm bank. So it's like a food bank, only you can go there to keep warm. This is one that's operating in Sussex. Sorry for the audio. The original audio on the video is not great.
Don't have to heat their home for an hour or two, and there'll be hot and cold drinks available. There'll be a mobile device charging point. There'll be also financial and wellbeing signposting advice. If anyone wants it, they don't have to. They could just come if they feel like a bit of company, and there'll be members of staff from Crawley Borough Council at all our 6 hubs across the borough, and that's on top of what the voluntary and community sector is providing elsewhere as well.
What service will a bank provide?
Well, it will just be a place that people can come. It can be just, if you just want to save some money, you can have a cup of tea or coffee or a fruit juice. There'll be hopefully company as things pick up. Obviously things have just opened and we're looking to get word of mouth around and encourage people. So I'd say if you're a resident who would enjoy using our facility, or you know somebody who might, then please let them know. We really have set them up because we want people to benefit and we want to help.
Okay, he's just going to continue about that, but the food bank should, the warm bank should not exist. And I think it's a good thing that the council is providing this. The council, of course, is providing it with little or no support from central government. This is a cost mainly to this has to be taken out of the budget. So the heating and the lighting has to be paid for by the council, which many councils are struggling at the moment, even just to keep operating basic services. The last thing they need is to be, running lighting and heating in libraries that would normally be closed. It's great that they're doing this, but it shouldn't have to happen. It's like charity. Charity is a failure of government. With the odd exception where, you collect food that hasn't been sold and you give it to old folks' homes or something like that. That's okay, but generally that's not what's happening here. Charity exists because there is a failure of government. And it's not that the government forgot something or something slipped through the net. It's by design sometimes. Well, we don't have to provide essential public services, so we just let the charities pick up the slack. The most egregious example of that was some weeks ago where refugees or asylum seekers were put on a bus and sent to, was it Victoria Station in London, and dropped off there. And of course the charity came along and put them in warm accommodation. But once again, it's the government messing up here, either messing up on purpose or by accident. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Jokes aside, genuinely, there's a certain 5-year-old little boy. I know he's been admitted to an NHS hospital with suspected meningitis. Oh my God! He and his frankly terrified mother were in A&E for 9 hours. And I understand the frustration. I know I can't say I understand it because I haven't gone through that. But we can try to imagine the frustration of the staff. They want to help this little boy. The frustration of the mother, who's like, please help him, please somebody come and help him. He needs to be treated. This is extremely serious. And once again, all of this could have been avoided. I was looking at the local hospital here. I think it was after one of the last live streams, and the local hospital in my area had 0 people waiting for any sort of in A&E. The A&E was empty. Now, A&E is not always empty, but on that day, I think it was a Tuesday night, it was empty. I think there were about 10 people on non-priority waiting. So these are people who maybe I don't feel so well and I'm going in, or I have an appointment, or I don't have an appointment, but I'll just turn up in A&E and ask for some sort of treatment or some sort of medication. But critically, there was nobody, because they have the staff and the funding that they need. Now, I'm not saying every hospital is like that, but if you have the staff, and as we looked at before, what's the problem here is that there's a massive shortage of workers, and the government are in a battle with nurses, trying to convince the public that the nurses are the problem, that they're well paid, they don't need any more money, that it's immoral for them to go on strike, it's immoral for ambulance workers to go on strike, because they're putting the lives of patients at risk. But they're already putting the lives of patients are already at risk because of underfunding and because of a lack of staff. And this is the responsibility of government. It's government's job to make sure that the hospitals and the NHS have the staff that they need and that they have the funding they need. And I've said before, if you don't invest in health and education, what's the point in having a bloody government? Thanks so much, Gareth, for that super chat. Almost at the end of the stream, I just want to cover one final thing when it comes to warm banks. Once again, they should not exist, but this is... Let me see if this loads. Newcastle warm banks and how to use one. and here it lists in Newcastle all the warm spaces available. It says, set up with the assistance of Newcastle City Council, there are 48 winter well-being hubs across the city. 48. They're in churches, libraries, community centres, residential centres, asset trust and post office, and in a post office. Some of the public buildings that are normally closed during the evening, they're open. They're opening extra for to be turned into warm spaces. This is unacceptable. And once again, it's not necessary. This is a decision by government. Government decide, okay, we're not going to actually provide people with the support they need. We could tax the energy companies more. We could impose a windfall tax, but then, well, we sort of did, but then we created a loophole so they don't actually get taxed. We could actually impose that and provide people with the money they need to pay their bills. But then we don't want to do that because charities exist. See, if people are cold, they just go to the warm bank. Can you imagine if somebody were to tell you last year, in 2022, next year in 2022, we'll be talking about warm banks? You'd be like, what? Even a few months ago, when it was one of you guys on this stream, I don't know if you're on tonight, but you mentioned, Max, can you talk about warm banks? And I was looking at the phrase warm bank. Do you not mean food bank? And it took me a moment. It's like warm. I thought it was some sort of joke. Warm bank. And then I realized, no, it was not a joke. You were serious. Cancel non-dom status. Yeah, that was an option. Jeremy Hunt said, no, because then these people will go away. Okay. You're not getting money from them. If they go away, we won't get money from them. Well, then there's no loss there, is there? Oh, but they buy property in the local area. Not really. And if they do, they actually drive up house prices for ordinary people. So that's not really a benefit of having. There's no benefit to having these people. Tax them, and then there's the benefit. And in most cases, they're not going to leave if you tax them, because they are probably making more money. It's this non-dom status is an extra benefit. If it wasn't there, they would still be there. In most cases, it's always used as a threat. Or if we imposed, if we tax the rich more, they'll leave, and they'll take all their money with them, and then the exchequer will lose out. Generally, that doesn't really happen. How many times have you heard about, for example, in the US, if the Democrats get into power, all these millionaires will leave because they're going to impose high taxes. They don't actually impose high taxes anyway, but not high enough. But it's the same with, if the Labour Party get into power, they're, all these millionaires will become, be living under bridges or something. And the billionaires, they'll have to downgrade their Rolls Royces. They'll actually have to drive the Rolls Royces themselves because they won't be able to afford a chauffeur. Oh my God. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. So I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks to everyone for the super chats, and apologies for the connection going down or YouTube messing up. I'm not sure what happened with the stream. But I want to say thanks to the moderator for doing a wonderful job and pointing people in the direction of this stream. Hopefully it won't happen again. Before we finish, of course, we have our one for the road, so I'm going to bring that up. And I'll see you perhaps on Sunday for the Sunday roast. It will be live. 99% sure it will be live on Sunday. So I hope you're going to stop by. And if I don't see you then, I'll see you next Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. But we finish with one for the road, of course. And I hope you enjoy it.
I found the news very confusing this week. Apparently it's okay to ask where somebody's from if you're the census, but not if you're a lady in waiting. It's classic double standards. I don't mind being asked where I'm from, because I'm from privilege, and Oxford, and Oxfordshire. You see, we all have multiple identities. As soon as I heard about this, I knew he'd be calling me to ask my opinion. No, I'm happy to do it. Usual fee? To be fair, the last time I was at Buckingham Palace, I was asked several times where I was from and what I was doing there. Yes, it was 2 a.m. and I wasn't wearing trousers, but the point still stands. The thing is that Lady H is from a different generation. She lived through the whole of the Second World War, for goodness sake. and for at least a few of those years she wasn't wearing nappies, so she made a contribution. She's 83 for God's sake. You can't expect her to understand modern concepts like racism or politeness or doing her job properly. She was basically brought up in black and white. Well, mostly white. Look, I've known Lady H for years, and she's never said anything racist in front of me. In fact, she once told me off for being racist. I mean, would a racist do that? And as I said to her at the time, how can you be racist about the Dutch? The timing's a bit convenient, don't you think? Accusations of racism in the royal family just before they released a trailer for that new film about Harry and the awful woman. I mean, honestly, what's more likely? That unthinking racism permeates an institution built on centuries of colonialism, or that two non-white women made up stories? I know what I believe. And now suddenly everyone's talking about Harry and what's-her-name instead of the Prince and Princess of Wales, who are in America or something. Why aren't we talking about them? No, I haven't got anything to say about them, but I'm sure she's looking lovely. How do we know that Meghan didn't set this whole thing up? Yeah, she probably called Lady H and was like, oh, I don't remember where this woman is from. Could you get me the full lowdown? And Lady H was like, of course I can, because she's very dutiful, and she was just trying to get all of the details for her. So now she's gone from a lady in waiting to just a lady. Can you think of a worse fate? You may as well have murdered her. Do you know who I really worry about? The Queen. I think this must have really upset her up in royal heaven. I can barely look at a stamp these days without feeling sad. I've had to stop going to the post office. Although that's more to do with who they've got working behind the counter. Kanye West? No, I've never heard of him. But give me 5 minutes and I'll have an opinion for you.
Wonderful. Harry, that was it, that horrible lady. Wonderful. Oh my God. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. Just in at the end, local church in my town running warm and food banks saw a rise of 40% with working families, the elderly, and even a former millionaire using their services. It used to be the homeless. It used to be people who are, at the lowest end of the economic scale. But now more and more people are relying on them. And I really hope that people who are going to these food banks are going to start to realize it doesn't have to be like this. There can be something better. We can have a government that actually looks after people. And, it'll be a wonderful day when the last food bank and the last warm bank is closed down. The ones that have opened under the Tories. So guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you probably on Sunday for the Sunday roast. If not, I'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and take care. Thanks a lot. Good night.